in the right spot. He called in the exact right spot, like under the most duress you could imagine. But like, so my mental image of what happened is under truly, like I witnessed life and death. Like I was in a life and death scenario and I got to be fully an audience for it. Every motherfucker was fucking perfect at their job. Like literally rounds flying everywhere. Hey, what's going on? Up, got your legs all tied off here. Hey, what's going on? Calling this airstrike over. Couldn't be calmer. That was it. Like, and so my debrief point was, it fucking works. The training works.
Wow. What a fucking story. Holy shit, dude.
There's an addendum to it.
I want to hear the addendum.
Yeah, so after we got medevaced, so I'm in the helicopter, and at this point I don't know the state of my injury. All I know is a few minutes ago I thought I died. You know, like I'm happy to be here now. But we get in the helicopter, and that crew was amazing. I think they were PJs, Air Force PJs, which are like Spec Ops Air Force, I think. They were fucking great. But they're like, hey, do you want, what's the drug? Oh my God, it's the painkiller drug, morphine. And I said, no, I didn't have any pain, but I was like, I'm worried I might die, and I want to be lucid for it. And they're like, okay, no, I think you're going to be okay. But I was like in my head that I might die, I don't know. And so we get medevaced out of Zarganshar, and they fly us right to this nearby base, very close by, called Shank. And when we get there, there's obviously doctors and nurses that are there specifically for this. And so even though it was the middle of the night, they had been told, hey, you have 2 casualties, you know, the guy with the collapsed lung and myself. To be honest, I don't really know exactly what they were told, but I would imagine they were told, get ready for some type of surgery for both of them. And so we fly to Fob Shank, and I get wheeled in on a stretcher. My clothes have been fucking cut off of me. Like my dick's hanging out. Like I'm in disarray. Like I'm all fucked up. And I don't even know. I think I'm going to be okay. Because at this point I've made it here. And no one's acting like I'm literally about to die. But I don't know. I don't really know how bad it is. And they wheel me into this tent along with the other guy, and it's so bright, like so bright inside of there that you can barely open your eyes. And it's just a sea of all these doctors and nurses that are ready to perform whatever needs to happen because they don't know. They don't know what needs to be done. But as soon as I get in there, I see in the back corner of this relatively small medical tent, like a shanty medical tent, is maybe like 15 SEALs that were not on the mission with me. There are other guys in country that are other Navy SEALs. It's the middle of the night, and they've put on the equivalent of their best uniforms. These are not dress uniforms. These are like their BDUs. These are not nice. But in Afghanistan, on a deployment, this is the best shit they had. They clearly had been tracking, because you can track missions in real time when you're overseas. They saw the call signs come across that SEALs had been wounded and were being brought here for treatment. I have no sense of what exactly they knew. But clearly whatever was passed indicated that one of us or both of us could die. And so these dudes were in the tent in case we died. They're my friends. I know them all personally. And so I'm being wheeled in, and the gravity of what's happening was like a fucking ton of bricks, because now I'm kind of loopy from what's been going on. And I see that the looks on these guys' faces, and they're wearing these uniforms, and they're all standing almost like at attention in the corner. And they're there in case I fucking die. It's like I'm going to my own funeral. And so I'm put on they swarm me, not them, the doctors swarm me, and they get me ready for debridement, which is just to pull the shrapnel out of my hips and my leg. And the guy was like, all right, I'm going to give you, I think it was ketamine. He's like, you're not going to, this is it. Like, good luck to you. And he like gave me ketamine, and I passed out, or whatever he gave me. I completely passed out. And then it's like I have no memory, and I fucking wake up in Germany. I'm in fucking Germany, and I'm just up. Yeah, you're fine. Yeah, your legs are all fucked up. You're gonna live, keeping your limbs. And then I think it was 7 days after that, I'm back home in Virginia, hobbling down the Home Depot fucking aisle. Just no transition. I was just killing people overseas, and now you're
holy shit.
Yeah. Fucking nuts.
What was
man.
The extent of the injuries?
Honestly, I was so fortunate. It was a big hole in my ass, like a I think 3 or 4 inch chunk. The big issue with it is it was so deep into my ass that they had to keep opening it so that it would not heal in reverse. Do you know, because it can pocket the, and then just inside of my leg. I mean, basically, I was spared. Like, it was just a massive flesh wound from underneath my knee all the way up to my back. And then I also, this is the part that was the worst, to be honest. Leg's fine. I have a little bit of residual soreness. At this point, there's a little bit of shrapnel in my leg, but they're like pieces of sand. They only, on a hot day, I might notice it. But from the grenade blast, I was told by my orthopedic surgeon that the blast likely briefly dislocated both of my shoulders.
Whoa.
I truthfully don't know if this actually happened, but he said as much. And I tore both of my labrums, a slap tear. It's a relatively common injury. And I had what's called a biceps tendinosis surgery done on my right. Basically, it was so painful I couldn't really use it. But it's this surgery where they remove a portion of your bicep and they restaple it. But it's sort of like a Band-Aid, doesn't really fix the problem. And the shelf life of a biceps tendinosis is about 10 years before you might see some degrading. And I'm now at the point where my shoulder fucking sucks. And I, like in the gym, I have to do all these, I have to avoid pressing, I have to avoid overhead stuff.
And it's just where the bicep tendon is?
So what happens is the labrum tear itself never got fixed. They just removed some of the tension on one side of the tear, but still over time, it continues to tear down the labrum. So effectively, my labrum just over time has continued to tear, and I'm getting some additional pain. I just had an MRI done, and they're like, you had the bicep tendinosis done. There's not a whole lot more you can do. You can do stuff to fix it, but a lot of it is just going to do more damage than good. And so I'm probably staring down, not chronic fucking pain or whatever, but something like that.
Have you done any stem cells?
No.
Okay. How long are you in town for?
Tonight.
That's it?
No, I can come back.
I'm going to bring you into Ways to Well. See what they could do for you.
Whatever I can do. It's a fucking huge pain.
Yeah, while you're here, we should try to get you in.
Dude, yeah.
Maybe I can get you in like right after we're done. You could just drive right over there because it's not far from here.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's a huge issue.
Guarantee you it can help you. Have you fucked around with peptides at all?
No, I see them all over the place. But
you should. There's a lot of things that they can do that can radically help you. One of the things they can do, it'll definitely decrease a lot of the inflammation and help heal. And, there's some evidence. How old are you?
37.
Yeah, you're still young, man. There's a lot of evidence that labrum tears can be healed with stem cells and without having to go through surgery, depending on the extent of the tear.
Yeah. I'm open to it.
Dude, I'm a big believer. It's fixed me. I've had a lot of problems where I was like, I need surgery. I had an orthopedic surgeon told me, for sure you need shoulder surgery. I never got it done. He's like, you could rehab it. This was more than 10 years ago. He's like, you could rehab it, but you're going to need surgery. It's 100% now.
Your shoulder's good now?
100%.
Oh, damn, dude.
I do all my kettlebell work with 70-pound kettlebells. I don't have any problems.
Damn,
windmills, cleans presses, renegade rows, gorilla cleans, no problems.
How much you cleaning?
50s. You just gorilla cleans? I do it for reps.
Do you do barbell clean?
No, I don't lift anything heavy. When I do gorilla cleans, I either do 50s or 70s. My whole kettlebell workout is either 50s or 70s. And sometimes I work out with 35s just for the warm-up. Like I'll do like warm-up stuff. Like I'll do like rotation exercises with 35s. Things where I'm like big halos where I'm really opening up my back and getting.
When did you get into doing kettlebell stuff? I've seen you post like the demon bell or the gorilla bell.
The gorilla bell. Yeah, those are the 70s. Those are the shit. Those are. I really got into farmers carries. That's what I'm using. The gorillas are like my best friends lately. I just do these. I have this big long driveway with a hill, and I do these gorilla carries. It's like a 200-yard driveway, and I do these gorilla carries where you take with those farmers carries with those gorilla kettlebells. And
70s?
Yeah, and I take them up the hill and down the hill. And
shit, dude.
My grip has gotten so much better, and on top of it, it's like my legs have gotten better, and it feels like my whole body is like more connected, if that makes any sense. Because when you're that guy Tom Haviland, you know who he is?
Oh, fuck yeah,
fuck yeah, everybody knows who that guy is.
Dude's a beast.
One of the things that I got from him is he's talked about the importance of picking up heavy things and walking with them. Okay. He's like, if you really want to get strong, he's like, strength is not just lifting heavy stuff like stationary, like carry things And so he does a lot of weird, like
his Zercher's like fucking 500 pounds.
Insane. But he does a lot of weird, like off-weight stuff where he has more weight on one side than the other and switches him. He has a chain behind him and he's dragging the chain with his right shoulder while he's doing farmer's carries with 2 hands. He does a lot of crazy stuff like that. And obviously the guy's a fucking freakishly strong person. So I'm like, okay, well, let me see if there's anything to this. So a few months back, I really got into farmer's carries. And I first just would do it. This is him.
Oh, beast.
Fucking freak.
Yeah, the trademark shirt he's got on. Yeah. He always has that shirt
and
on.
you always see his back, and he's like 6'8", almost 400 pounds. He's a fucking giant human being.
I love his page.
Yeah, he's a real freak. But this thing that he really believes in is carrying things and walking around with them. And now I really get it. I really get it. Because I've been doing it now for at least 3, maybe almost, it's going on 4 months, and it's completely transformed my legs. My legs are way thicker. They're stronger. My back feels better. My connection between like my entire core and my back is better. Damn, like everything feels stronger. I'm stronger in every other workout that I do. I feel way stronger when I do like cleans and presses and windmills and everything else. Because when you're carrying stuff like that, it's like your whole body, your core has to stay tight, your back has to stay tight, everything's dealing. And then when you're up at the top of the hill, you're like, motherfucker, and your forearms are literally on fire, and you're trying to hold on to these things. And, you know, I got a chalk ball in my pocket, and I reach in there and powder my hands back up.
Dude,
and
that's awesome.
As soon as I get my hands back going, I do it again. And that has changed everything. That's changed everything. But one of the things that I've noticed is I very rarely get injured, as opposed to my friends who do like traditional weightlifting stuff,
like powerlifting, or just like
benching heavy, squatting heavy, deadlift heavy. Those dudes are all my friends who do that are always getting hurt. They're always getting hurt.
I'm guilty of that to some degree.
Everybody is. It's but you think that's the only way to get strong, and I don't think that's correct. I don't think it's correct. I think the most important thing is volume with reasonably heavy things, where you're not hurting yourself. Like 70 pounds is, I could probably do 20 reps of cleans and presses, but I only do 10, and then I rest for like 5. I do the Pavel Tsatsouline method.
What's that?
Pavel Tsatsouline is the guy who really brought kettlebells over to America. Okay. And he's a famous kettlebell coach for Strong First, which is his company. And he's this philosophy that strength is a skill. And you shouldn't practice skills when you're exhausted. And this whole idea of working to failure. I mean, obviously, if you want to be a bodybuilder or even a professional power lifter, that's a different thing. But if you want to get strong, the most important thing is the amount of work that you do, not exhausting the muscle with one set.
Got it.
And so what he has you do is if you can do 20 reps, do 10, and then wait 5 minutes and do another 10. You got the same volume of work, but you're never exhausted while you're doing it. Your form is always perfect. And you're still getting the same amount of work. So my workouts, like I have to allocate 2 hours if I'm doing a kettlebell workout.
Fuck, dude.
Yeah, I know, but it works.
Dude,
it works. And again, I'm fucking never injured. And if I'm injured, it's like a little tendonitis here or something bothering me on my lower back a little, but it's never significant.
My trainer, John Finkst, we've been working together a couple years now in Jersey. He's the man. He's a big believer in that. What you were talking about, I could do 20, but I do 10 instead. Mm-hmm. He's like all about, not form till you die, because there are times where it's like time to throw some English in, get some volume in.
Right.
But he keeps me from ego lifting and keeps me from doing stuff that it's like over the top.
Ego lifting's a problem, especially with
I can't help it.
The one time I hurt my back really bad, I was deadlifting like 450 with the
like just traditional grip.
Just the
trap bar deadlift.
Yeah, the trap bar. What is it? Hex bar? What do you call that thing?
Yeah, trap bar.
So I love those things.
I fucking love those things.
But I was like, let's get big, and then I felt think. That luckily it was muscle, not like spinal, not a disc issue. It was lower back, left lower back. It fucked with me for like a 6-month period.
I bet.
Oh, so and bad. I was like, I'm not doing that anymore. And from that moment on, I got really into just doing kettlebells, and I'm stronger than I've ever been. I don't think you need to lift really, depending upon what you're trying to do. You know, I mean, if you're trying to become a power lifter, sure, you need to lift heavy. But if you just want to be strong and functional, I don't think you need to lift heavy. I don't believe in it.
Dude, right now I'm on like a pretty big cut. Like I do a summer cut each. Well, this is my second summer I've done that.
Just look good on the beach?
Dude, shamelessly. There's nothing else to it. But what I've found in my own life is that I do really well when I have not a goal, like a lofty goal even, but just some fucking thing that you got to suffer to achieve it. I do well with goals like that.
Yeah, goals are important.
Yeah, dude. And I right now I'm on my I count calories. I'm into my macros like you wouldn't believe. But what I was doing before this, I was doing none of that, and I was fucking obsessed with hang cleans, just like barbell hang cleans. Dude, I'm so fucking. I've gotten up to 225. Very proud of that, but it's like the one exercise, no matter, we do so many exercises.
That doesn't fuck with your shoulder?
Actually, no, it doesn't. It's pressing. It's this motion.
Interesting.
It's the press. Dude, if I press like a fucking 50-pound dumbbell, see
wow.
Out for two, but I can do a clean. That's part of the reason I discovered it, is it didn't fuck with my shoulder, but I have been on a quest to like find the right way to train for cleans, because one of the issues with doing cleans with a barbell, and maybe I'll do kettlebells, is I have a scar right here that I broke my collarbone when I was 7, and my collarbone juts out because it healed slightly in the wrong direction. And so every fucking time I'm in a block of doing cleans, I always have this just like recurrent infected wound on my fucking collarbone.
No.
And then like in the comments of every video, they're like, dude, what's wrong with
you
fucking...
got staph.
Yeah, dude. And so, but anyways, the kettlebell
you shaved
cleans,
down?
Yeah, dude, like a fucking... But it sounds like you do cleans and shit with kettlebells.
With kettlebells, yeah.
That's probably something I need to consider.
Yeah, and it's not easy to do. You know, like 70 pounds is when you're doing like 10 reps, and I'm doing like 3 sets of 10 reps.
It's fucking brutal.
But it's also the clean and press from the ground up, right? It's all one motion, and this continual motion, you know, over the course of 10 repetitions, it's a good solid minute plus of work. Ugh. So you're working really hard for a minute. So you're getting like a little bit of a cardio benefit from it, but if I'm real consistent with it, I'm 59 now. I just turned 59. So it's just about staying strong. That's all I'm concerned with. Not losing any of my strength, not losing any of my mobility or flexibility or anything like that. I'm constantly stretching, I believe in maintaining. And I think most people don't do that. That's why we have a very distorted perception of what's possible. I think we think that people deteriorate with age like so radically that it is what it is. It's a fact. It's going to happen to you. Sure. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think that most people just don't have the willpower to keep maintaining correctly, and they're not supplementing their hormones and taking peptides and also optimizing their nutrition. Yeah. I think if you do all of those things, I'm personally shocked at what I can still do. When I was a kid,
you're fucking jacked, dude.
Thank you. When I was a kid and I thought of a 59-year-old, I'm like, oh my God, that guy's dead. That's a dead man. Like he's probably could barely
dead.
Barely open a jar of pickles, barely fucking make it down a flight of stairs. Dude. And I have fucking zero problems. You know, I have one fucked up knee from my martial arts days where I had my meniscus removed in a big chunk of it. And it still fucks with me. But it doesn't fuck with me in terms of function. It only fucks with me in terms of like I'm worried it's going to become arthritic over time, because there's nothing between the cartilage. The cartilage is banging against each other.
Yeah.
And I broke it skiing once, that right where the cartilage meets the bone. But I think that with the improvements and all these biological therapies like stem cells and peptides, I can maintain it, and that's what I'm doing. So it keeps me out of jiu-jitsu, because that's the one thing that really rips on your joints, especially my knee. Every time I've done it, it's like, fucker. It just gets – I don't want to do anything – like my friend Matt Serra, he had a knee replacement, and he's younger than me. And I'm like, yeah, but it's jiu-jitsu. It's just like you're constantly in weird positions and pushing, and someone's fucking trying to heel hook you, and you're defending. It's like everything is getting yanked around, and then it's sore, but you still go back the next day because you want to train because you're addicted.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
I found that when I was in the teams, I was in good shape, sort of by default. And then I got out, and I sort of hovered around like I'm still relatively young, it's fine. And then this whole Mr. Ballin YouTube thing happened, and I, in a way, adopted the same mindset that made me successful in getting through training, which is like this obsessive, got to make more videos. You know, I've had my viral moment, like grow it at all costs. But all of my health went out the window. Dude, it'd take me about, I don't know, like 26 hours ish to do, I'm going to make a video, hitting post on YouTube. And then even though all I wanted to do was sleep, my immediate reaction at like 3 a.m. would be just slam like 4, 5, 6 drinks and then go right to bed. Like I don't even feel it. I just would drink and go right to bed.
And drink just to go to sleep?
No, I didn't even, it was almost like, here's your reward, suck down these fucking drinks.
Oh, I get it.
And then, but I got so grossly out of shape. So, like, dude, I was like 200 pounds of just fat. And I had this huge ponytail that I grew. I thought it looked really good. If you can pull it up, dude, I look so fat and gross. But then it finally occurred to me that, like, wow, you're entering like true dad bod territory, and there's just no excuse. And so sometime in like 23, 24, I was like, all right, I got to be like an adult again and train. And it's revolutionary, man.
Whoa, dude, that's crazy.
There's a good shot of my disgusting. Let's see, Mr. Ballin. Look at Mr. Ballin fat. I think that'll probably do it.
I try not to be rude or anything.
That's a decent one. That one's recent.
Which one?
And that one's sort of recent. The second one in there, that's not even that bad.
Well, the first picture you pulled up, you get it. Oh, you see there in that image.
Yeah, you can see a little ragged going on there.
Yeah.
But yeah, just.
Well, you got to do what you got to do when something starts happening, and you realize like, oh my God, like it's like starting a fire in the woods. Like,
oh yeah.
You got to blow on it. You got to put some fucking little twigs on it.
Yeah.
You got to get that fucker going. Like once, and then you've had congratulations because you've had amazing success. Like, what do you have? Like 11 million YouTube subscribers.
Yeah, 11 million.
That's incredible, man. That's really cool.
Dude, I can only imagine what you've been through, but the thing that this started in 2020 and it's 2026. I have had some incredible highs. The early days of after the viral moment, and I'm like posting stuff that I like upload a video, and literally the next day it's like, you've made $20,000 from yesterday to now. And like, I've never in my life made any real money ever. It's almost overnight. And it grew and grew. And then it's like, I signed a deal with Amazon like 10 months after starting a podcast. I remember when you got your first deal with Spotify. I remember that was like, I didn't even know it was possible for a podcast or anything to sign like the equivalent of a professional sports level contract. And then it's like less than a year after the start of the Mr. Ballin podcast, I'm partnering up with Amazon. It was a $62 million deal. And I say that because, dude, my life got so much better and so much fucking worse at the same time.
What was the worst?
Oh, God. So there's like the little stuff. Actually, I just had a lawsuit close. They pled guilty to theft. And a bunch. So I started a house renovation project when I was living in a house in Pennsylvania when this thing kicked off. And I think they picked up that I was making quite a bit of money. I was adjusting how much I wanted done to my house. Before long, I'm like adding fucking crazy shit to my house. They ended up gutting the house to the studs because they're going to remodel it, but they didn't do any work. And now they kind of had me. My house is wrecked. I'm living in a rental. They're stringing me along. And so they stole hundreds of thousands of dollars and never did any work. And so I sued them. That's a little thing. And then over the course of the next several years, dude, I've had people take advantage of me in just the most personal, deep cutting ways that if you were to like write a movie, here's the scene of somebody who suddenly comes into money and like the pitfalls of that, of people coming out of the woodwork to take from them. The things that happened to me with some family and with some close friends and with, business partners is just like, wait, are you fucking kidding me? Like this was all just an angle? Like you had an angle on me the whole time? Like this was a fucking con?
Well, people think about people that come into money like that the same way they think about a large corporation if they like slip on the floor like at Target,
yeah.
ooh, I'm going to get paid. They don't think, I'm all right. It's fine. It's my fault. I slipped. No, they think, oh, this is an opportunity.
Big time.
And they look at a guy like you who's, through your own hard work and stumbling upon this idea and following through with it, made a bunch of money. They're like, I can get some of that money. They don't even think of you as a person anymore. They think of you as a target. You got to keep your circle tight,
dude.
That's the thing.
I got Antonio out there. He's like my right hand man. He's a former homicide detective. Like he came to me to be my house manager, and one of the first things he said to me is, he's like, I don't give a fuck about your content, dude. I think it's stupid. And I was like, you're the guy for me. But he's been awesome because he just like keeps everybody around me sort of like vetted. But yeah, dude, it's
that's important, man, because people will sneak through, and sometimes you don't see them the way other people see them.
Yeah.
Other people see them as like, this guy's got an angle, he's a scumbag, be careful. And you let people into your circle, and then they're like, when they're around you, they're putting on an audition. They're pretending to be someone they're not. They're pretending to be someone that you're going to want to hang out with. And what they're using you is they're just thinking of you as a springboard or as a way to get money.
I would imagine for you, just given, I mean, dude, you are podcasting. Like if there is literally people are like, hey, you want to be the next president? You better go on Joe's show. Like, I can only imagine the amount of auditioning that happens around you and your circle to get where I'm sitting right now. And I got to be honest, I don't know how you'd be able to sift through people that are trying to meet Joe and interact with you, and people who are trying to get in with Joe so Joe will interview them.
Well, the good news is I don't really interact with anybody.
That's the right approach.
So the way I even get like suggestions is, one, I see something that I'm interested in, and I have a guy, and I either call him, text him, or email him and say, hey, let's try to get this guy on.
Yeah.
This guy's got a great book, or she's got a really interesting documentary, or whatever it is. And then I get these people that submit to want to be on the show.
Yep.
So I get a list of those that, there's a guy that goes through them that makes sure they're legit. And then by the time they get to me, it's filtered out to what is actually going to be interesting. So there's not a lot of, people meeting me that are, and the people that do meet me, usually I never want to have them on. Like if somebody just like comes up to me and says, I have to be on your podcast. I'm like, nope, you definitely don't.
I already know you don't.
You definitely don't have to be on. So this is a crazy conversation. No one has to do anything, and it's, people reveal themselves, They just do. They, over time, it takes a little bit, it's not instantaneous, but over time, people reveal themselves. And it's just, the key is, just being open. And there's also, people surprise you. You meet a lot of really interesting people. You run into people that you didn't expect would be fascinating, and they are.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of that too. It's just, you got to be present, just not buy into any of it. That's the real key. No matter how big it gets, just keep doing the thing that you do. So all I do is talk to interesting people. That's it.
It's the right way to approach it.
It's not that complicated. And as long as I continue to do it the same way, I feel like people will enjoy it. Because I think they enjoy it because I enjoy it. Just like the way when someone's doing something that they really love to do, I enjoy watching. If someone's doing like metal sculpture, and the guy's really into it, he's welding and hammering, I'm like, I am into that. I'm like, I'm into people doing things. I like when people are really enjoying what they're doing and are really curious and or really like competent at something. They're excellent at something. I enjoy watching that. I enjoy listening to it. And I always enjoy talking to interesting people. So as long as I just keep enjoy talking to interesting people, I think people will keep enjoying watching it. And it's a nice exchange. Works. It's real simple, but I keep it that way. I don't ever think like, oh, this guy's famous, he'll have a bunch of followers. This will be a good episode because I'll get a lot of views. I don't think like that. I only think, because like a lot of the people that are on my show, no one's ever heard of them. They're just an interesting person that I found on YouTube, or an interesting person that I found, in a documentary or whatever it is.
I think it's the point you make about how you. Well, I think for me, anyways, the one thing I've come back to over the past several years of doing this is truthfully, even though there are times where, creating content is obviously, it is a job in the sense that we have a recording schedule and we have things that we have to do, as you obviously do too, amongst whatever else you're doing. The one thing that I fucking love doing is telling stories. I mean, I really feel like that's the place where I'm.
You're a really good storyteller.
Well,
you had me on the edge of my seat rather, with your Afghanistan story. Fuck, man, that was incredible. You're really good at it.
Thank you.
And the other one too, the Russian one too. A great story, it resonates with people, especially a creepy one, which is why I think you've picked the perfect angle.
Yeah.
Because a great creepy story, like you hear a great creepy story, like everybody's like, whoa, and then what happened?
Have you heard of the Headless Valley?
No.
In your comings and goings on the show,
No.
the Nahanni Valley?
No.
I got a good story for you. You want to hear it?
Okay.
Okay. So in Canada, there's this section in the Northwest called the Northwest Territories. Are you familiar with this?
Yes.
Okay. So for those that are not, the Northwest Territories is roughly 4 times the size of Germany. But Germany has something like 87 million people who live there. And in this space in Canada, this rugged space, there's like 45,000 people that live there. So it's 4 times the size of Germany and basically not populated. It is as remote as it gets.
Population of Dripping Springs.
Not
even.
Yeah, dude.
Not even. Dripping Springs probably has
Fuck,
more.
dude. And so within the Northwest Territory, there's this even more remote stretch that's called the Nahanni Valley. And the Nahanni Valley today, it's a protected park. It's a Canadian protected park. But even still, even though it's a park you can go visit, it's nearly impossible to get to. To get there by boat, you have to traverse these rapids. I think it's a very treacherous ride to get there by boat. There's no established roads into the Nahanni Valley. You can hike there. It's brutal to hike there. You can fly there, but it's only through chartered float planes. So it's a difficult place to get to. But the Nahanni Valley, in particular, when the story takes place, which is like the early 1900s, because of how isolated it was, it's like one of the parts of Earth that's like untouched by humans. And so the only people that would be in this huge sprawling valley, it was like an oasis of nature. They would see things that are just like so gorgeous, like untouched nature. But in the early 1900s, there was this push from gold prospectors to go out into the Nahanni Valley because they figured, because it's so untouched by humanity, there's bound to be gold to be found in the Nahanni Valley. Now, there were some indigenous tribes like the Naha tribe. They were out there. There's some lore surrounding how they might have abandoned their settlement around the time the story takes place. But there were indigenous tribes that lived out there. But for the most part, it's like this sort of vacant stretch in this already isolated part of the world. And so in 1905, these 3 brothers, these 3 prospectors, the McLeod brothers, Charlie, Willie, and Frank, they're seasoned gold prospectors, they decide they are going to head off into the Nahanni Valley and go try to strike it rich. And it's even harder to get into the valley back then as it is today. It required for them, they actually had to build a boat. They had to bring pieces of a boat, and they would take it up a rapid or down the rapid, and they'd have to disassemble the boat, carry it up like these rock faces to get because there's waterfalls they had to get past, and then bring the boat further and further into this valley. And it's like this, it's just crazy how much work goes into getting out there. But these 3 brothers, they find their way into the valley, and they get to this stretch of this river called the Flat River, which is anything but. It's raging rapids. But there was this little embankment against this huge forest and like mountains off in the distance, and they made their camp there, and there's no one around. I mean, this is pristine wilderness, and they start sluicing for gold, and it's just fucking gold everywhere. It's like the sand is gold. There's gold everywhere. They find so much gold, and they can't believe it. They've struck it completely rich here. And so after a whole day, I think they did 3 days even of just getting all this gold, they pack all their shit back up in their boat that they've assembled, and they begin making their way back out again, which should be easier because now I think a lot of it you're going with the current. I don't even know how they get up there with the rapids going one way. But either way, they begin making their way out, and their boat capsizes, and they lose all their gold. The boat breaks up. They narrowly are able to salvage the pieces, and they come ashore and they build their boat again, and they're like, oh my gosh, we've lost so many supplies. This is horrible. The best we can do here is leave and come back with more supplies because we know there's gold here. Like, this is devastating, but no one's going to be here. We can come back. We can get more gold. So they leave. And once they get back to town, Charlie, one of the brothers, decides, you know what, it's not worth it. That was really sketchy. I don't want to die out on the Flat River. You know, Frank and Willie, they're like, we got to go. We got to go out there. And so fast forward a year, Charlie's still saying, I will not go back out there. But Frank and Willie, they decide to go. And they recruit this other guy. I think his name is Robert Weir. And so the three of them go back into the valley to strike it rich. And, you know, Charlie is aware that they're going out there. He's staying back, but he knows they're going out. He knows where they're going because he went there with them. And he expects they're going to be gone for, I think it was going to be a whole year. And you can imagine how much effort goes into getting out there. They were going to live out there, I think, for the summer and just get as much gold as they could and come out. But some amount of time passed, let's call it a year, when Charlie starts to become suspicious because they haven't come out of the valley yet. And this is 1905. There's no way to talk to them. And so another whole year passes. We're 2 years deep into this, and still these guys have not returned from the Nahanni Valley. And so at this point, Charlie is thinking there's an issue here. Something's happened to my brothers. I got to go find them. And so he puts together a group of people to go see what happened to his brothers. And so he makes his way, he starts getting into the valley, and he reaches this stretch of, this is just to give you a mental image of where he's going. To get to that segment of the beach where they had been 2 years prior when Charlie was with them, because that's where he's assuming they're going to be, they had to pass through these canyons. There's 4 canyons that go, I think it's Canyon 4, Canyon 2, 3, 1. They're all just called Canyon 1, 2, 3, 4, but they're staggering. I mean, just visually, these are just ominous places. They're these stretches, like Canyon 2 is this 10-mile stretch of very deep water. I don't know how deep. I want to say it's at least 100 feet deep, where the water goes all the way up to the cliff face. It's just sheer cliff face on either side. So it's like the scar in the earth where it's hundreds of feet tall cliffs on either side that are sheer. And it's just, you know, call it 100 feet at least of water down. There's nowhere to stop. Once you're in this canyon, you must go to the end of the canyon. There's nowhere to go.
Oh, fuck.
And the Naha tribe, who the tribe that had lived there for a while, they had always talked about, they called them the Wahila. They said there were these creatures, these white, tall creatures that would roam the forest in the Nahanni Valley, and they would make these screeching sounds, and they were, you know, they would attack people. It's just folklore, right? But they said that in these canyons, there were all these caves, these pockets of caves high up on these canyons that you can't really get to, that they believed the Wahila would live inside of. So imagine you're going down this like misty 10-mile stretch in Second Canyon, and you're looking up on either side, and there literally are caves that no human has ever stepped foot in. You can't even get to these fucking caves. And because of the way the wind cuts through the canyon, it makes this echoey, like screeching noise that today you can still hear as you go through these canyons. And so they're going through Second Canyon, this stretch here. And the stretch of Flat River where he had been the year prior or 2 years prior with his brothers was at the end of Second Canyon, where the first little, call it a beachhead, exists. And so Charlie, and his search party, they exit this creepy Second Canyon, and they see there's a campsite set up on the beach. And it's not really a beach. It's like, 4 feet of sand, and then it's a little bit of hinterland, and then it's just, forest. But he sees there's a tent. And so they beach the boat, and they're looking around, and they find there's 2 bodies. It's a man, 2 men. They're badly decomposed, but they're missing their heads. So there's 2 headless men that are badly decomposed, one of which is reaching for his rifle, and he's half in the tent, half out of the tent, and he's reaching for his rifle, which is propped up against a tree, and the other is just lying behind the tent, and he's missing his head. The heads were never found. And they find identification, and it turns out those are his 2 brothers. And they find etched into the tree that the gun was propped on. It just was written, etched into the wood, we have found a fine prospect, which could mean any number of things. Maybe it means they found gold, whoever. But that was written on the tree. And then a little ways down from their camp, going along the same direction they'd come in, they found a skeleton, which they could never identify as being anyone, but they believe it belonged to Robert Weir. So they're all dead. And the authorities, when this was reported, they weren't really shocked. They're like, it's the Nahanni Valley. It's a dangerous place. They obviously died of starvation, and animal predation caused, their heads to be ripped off. Tough luck. Charlie didn't believe that. He always believed that something had happened to his brothers, but he had no way to prove it. So that's 1905. Fast forward to 1913, people sort of know about this story, that this is when they dubbed it the Headless Valley, because these men were found without their heads. Little did they know that story would carry quite a bit of weight, because 10 years, or a little bit less than 10 years later, Martin Jorgensen, who's another gold prospector, he heads out into the Nahanni Valley. He's heard the stories. He's heard about the McLeod brothers. He knows that there's, lore of the Wahila and that there's something weird happening in this valley and it's dangerous. But he goes out there anyways, and he tells his business partners, who are these rich guys who didn't want to actually go get the gold. They just funded his expedition. He's like, I'm going to go out there and I'll make us a bunch of money. I'll find a bunch of gold. I'll stay out there for the whole summer. And then we'll rendezvous and we'll split the earnings or whatever. So out he goes, and he builds himself a cabin not far from where the McLeod brothers had stayed, and then the second expedition as well. And he is out there for the summer, but then he misses the rendezvous point. He was supposed to come out of the valley and meet his partners at the end of the summer. He doesn't. Eventually, a search party is brought out to find what happened to him, and they find his cabin had burned to the ground. They find Martin Jorgensen is within the remains of this burned down cabin, missing his head.
Jesus.
And I don't know how they did this in 1913, but apparently the fire began on the roof. And so they don't understand how he could have not realized there was a problem and exited his cabin. I mean, it's simplifying it, but it's an odd thing that fire starts here and you still burn to the ground. And also, where's your head? So that's Martin Jorgensen. So now people, they aren't really connecting the McLeod brothers and Martin Jorgensen. It was called the Headless Valley by the time Martin Jorgensen gets into the valley. He's now found headless, and now it's like there's a little more rumor mill going on. Over the coming next 10 years, there was several other expeditions, to include this guy Riley O'Brien, who goes out there, prospector. He goes out to check his traps, doesn't come back. His partner who's with him, he walks over and finds him, and he's just sitting inexplicably by a campfire that's not on. It's not even, it was cold. It was cold enough to freeze to death out there, but it was not blindingly cold. And he's sitting in front of this fire pit. It's only been like an hour or two since he stepped away, and he's holding a match or a cigarette in his hand, and he's just like, he's frozen. He's frozen to death. And there's no sign of what happened to him. He's just sitting by the fire, and he's dead. He has his head, but he's frozen to death. The guy his partner who fled the valley would later say he looked flash frozen. So that happens. There were at least 2 other prospectors who also had their cabins burned down. One of them was nearly decapitated when he was found, but he still had his head, but signs of something being done to his spine was present. And then there was another 2 guys who their cabins burned down, but their bodies were intact. So there's all these people that die in similarly bizarre ways. And then I think it was 1926, the first really weird thing happens. This is all weird, but the really weird thing happens.
It's going to get weirder?
It gets weirder. There was this hunting party that went out to the Nahanni Valley. And by this point, it's become almost like because there's this lore surrounding how dangerous this place is, because people are fearful of the Nahanni Valley, it's now bringing a new crowd of people into the valley. It's bringing like hunting parties that kind of are like, I want to go fucking see what's out in this valley. And so they were going through Second Canyon, and they were heading to Flat River, and they were going to these places where all these kind of famous deaths have occurred to go hunting, but just sort of to be in this valley. And so this hunting party is out there. And it's a big group. I think there was at least a dozen people out there, and they're camping out on the banks of the Flat River, not really in the same spot where the McLeod brothers had been, but not too far away. And they're out drinking late, having a good old time. They all go to bed, and the next morning, May Lafferty is her name. May Lafferty. She's missing. She's I think she was the only woman on this expedition. She's gone. And they look for her. There's no sign of what happened to her. She's just gone. And so they did have some sort of a search occur over the next several days, but they ultimately said, we don't know what happened to her. And they left. They left the valley. And so they tell authorities. Authorities, I think they went out to look for her. They could never find her. No sign of what happened to her. And so around the time that they're looking for May Lafferty, there was this guy who is named Charlie, different from Charlie McLeod, just a sort of loner guy who just by happenstance had been camping in the Nahanni Valley at the same time as that hunting party. He was by himself, sort of just this rugged outdoorsman who, it's not even clear why he was out there, but he was just out there minding his own business. He was aware of the hunting party, and he said that he watched them have their party that night, and he had stayed up late but eventually gone to sleep. And he ultimately reports this to the police because there's all this talk of where's May Lafferty, and this guy Charlie realizes he may have seen her. So he goes to the police and he tells them, hey, I was out there. They don't know I was out there. I was out there at the same time. And I went to bed late at night after they were already asleep, and I woke up to the sound of rocks, like little rocks falling into the water. And he's relatively close to the water, but he's not so close that he would hear the sound of the current. He's far enough that a stone throw into the water, you'd hear the sploosh sound. And so he wakes up and he crawls out of his tent, and it's pretty well illuminated, and he's in the trees, and he can see the water, the flat river, and he can't tell what the rocks are coming from. It just sounds like rocks falling from a distance into the water. And so he just is curious, and he gets up and he walks down to the water line, and he starts hearing them more and more, and he looks up, and there's a part of the coastline, if you will, the beach line, that sort of was up on a rise to his left, like there was a hill that was right next to him. That's dramatic, just a slight rise. And there was a little bit of a cliff that maybe like 6 feet, 8 feet of a cliff that overlooked the river right there. And he sees there's this woman who's crawling on all fours, and she's scrambling up this little rise of the beach. And it's her kicking of the dirt that's like sprinkling rocks into the water. And he's looking at her, and she gets to the top, and she stops, and she turns around and looks at him, and he described her as looking possessed. He was like, there was something wrong with her. She just stared at me, and he was so frightened, he just froze and then hid. And he watched this woman scamper off into wherever she went, over the rise away from the camp. So she's gone, and he didn't know what to make of it. He's like, that's so weird. He hears about this missing woman. He tells police, and he sees a picture of her, and he's like, I'm nearly positive that was her. And so she's never found. And so May Lafferty's gone. Fast forward another 20 years. So there's no idea. In those 20 years, more prospectors are found dead as well. One of the last hunting parties went out into the Nahanni Valley. And actually, prospector goes out, and he goes missing. His name is John Patterson. This is like in the 1939, 1940 range. And a hunting party goes out to look for him, and they can't find him. And on the last night they were there, one of the men who was part of this search party for John Patterson, they're near the Flat River, he described an indigenous man walked out of the tree line, just sort of inexplicably walks over to him, and he comes up to the group who are sort of on the beach line there. And he just says to this guy, he's like, hey, and they're startled to see him to begin with. Like, where the fuck did you come from? And he's like, be careful. The Wahila are out tonight. And the guy just like wanders. This is, according to legend, this is what was said to him. And the guy wanders back off into the trees. But the leader of that expedition, they were planning to stay, I want to say 2 additional days to keep looking for John Patterson. But that night, following that comment made by that guy, the indigenous guy, all night they reported these ungodly screams and screeches coming from that canyon, second canyon, where those caves up in the cliffs were, all around the forest. Like unearthly sounds were being made that scared them so badly that the next day they said, we're not looking for John Patterson anymore, and they bailed. And so people stopped going into the Nahanni Valley, and today you can still go there. It's still very hard to get there, but no one has a good explanation for why so many fucking people from 1903 or 4 until at least the 1940s kept going into that valley and kept turning up dead, many of which without their heads.
So this indigenous guy that lived up there, where was he from? Like, was he living up there? Was he a part of a tribe? Was he passing through?
So that part of the story, admittedly, someone said that an indigenous guy said that to him. There's not much in the way of like, okay, was there a tribe there?
Right.
Like it was one of those loose pieces of information that sort of surrounds the story. The reality is like there's so much legend surrounding the Nahanni Valley, in part because the Naha tribe that had lived there was this story I mentioned at the beginning that they apparently abandoned the valley after something happened, and people have always attributed it to the legend of the Wahila, that somehow these creatures must have forced them to leave the valley. And so combine that with all of the actual deaths that occurred by the 1940s, when John Patterson went missing, and when that guy said, who was part of that search party, that the indigenous guy warned him of the Wahila, this was a big enough story that like Time magazine did something in, I think, the 1940s about like what the fuck is happening in the Nahanni Valley. Like, why are so many people dying out there? So I wonder if the people who were there, maybe they heard some strange sounds that night. Who knows? But who's gonna verify whether or not there really was someone who warned them about the Wahila? We don't know.
Right.
But that's the report that was given. Somebody claimed that an indigenous man sort of came out of nowhere, said, "Watch out for the Wahila tonight," and then that night they heard all these screeches and
The reason why
they called it in.
asking is like maybe it was indigenous people that just didn't want these other guys coming
the fuck
through,
outta
and
here.
so they created this thing by cutting off their heads and killing these people. And
It's a great deterrent.
yeah,
Well, like, maybe it's not, because a lot of people went back.
well, maybe less than would have,
Fair.
considering how much gold there was there.
Yeah, that's actually that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean what a great way to get rid of white people. You know, cut a few heads off.
Yeah, dude, create an
Tell them
urban
there's
legend.
ghosts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dude, I love that. I find myself even to this day Googling the Nahanni Valley and just looking at pictures of like the canyons and just reading even just stuff that I know is probably folklore around the valley, because the idea that within this stretch of isolated parts of the world there's this really isolated part that
Yeah.
no one can get to. I love that.
Well, there's some weirdness in the world still in places that people don't go to. And but just think about how hard it is to find a wolverine. And we know wolverines are real. Most
Where
people
are they?
never see a wolverine. They're in Alaska. They're in Canada. Minnesota has wolverines. Like, what states do wolverines? Let's put this
It's
into
gotta be Michigan,
perplexity,
right? It's
Jamie.
gotta be Michigan.
Gotta be Michigan. Yeah, Michigan's right up
They're the
there.
Wolverines, right? The Michigan Wolverines.
Right, but I don't necessarily think that means that.
Aren't
but I would
Wolverines like
imagine
these little guys too?
Oh yeah, they're little, just like badgers, like little ferocious motherfuckers. Let's see, Alaska, Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming.
No Michigan.
Interesting. But the thing is, what my point is, like, you don't see them.
No.
Like, I know a lot of guys, remote, cold, high elevation habitat, Colorado, Minnesota. I know a lot of guys who have been in the woods, their whole life hunting, and maybe they see one ever.
That's crazy.
We know there's populations of them out there, but it's rare to stumble across a wolverine in the wild, and that's a known animal. Now, imagine that there was a time. I mean, if you think about just the amount of other types of hominids that they've found just over the past few decades.
Yeah.
They keep finding new versions, like the island of Flores, the little hobbit people, the Denisovans that they found they think they were much larger than Homo sapiens.
Yeah.
So they're finding, and the Denisovans, I think, was like within the last 10 years or so. And they keep finding these skeletons and finding these bones. And then they find out, this one was around 300,000 years ago. It was around 500,000 years ago. But that's just what you find in bones. Most people's bones you're never going to find.
No.
So the vast majority of things that have died never make it into the fossil record. And so you have a small number of things that do. Now, we know that humans cannibalize other humans. It's been a practice in
it's practice
Papua
today.
New Guinea. Yeah.
It's practiced today.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a bit of an overclaim, but I think
The
it's
Nez
still practiced
Perce
today.
supposedly ate some of their enemies. Like, there's a bunch of cannibalism going on in the world. Now, imagine if there was a hominid and some sort of an ancient creature that still stayed alive in a small population, but would eat people, or maybe just cut their fucking heads off, or just attack them and kill them because they didn't want them anywhere near, because they had associated over time people with problems. And then if you're around people, they're going to hunt you, they're going to shoot you,
Yeah,
they're going
that's
to
a
kill
good
you.
point.
So what do? You stay as far away from people. The way to survive is to be in the most remote place humanly possible. And when you find people, kill them. Kill them so that they don't go after you.
I know that you had seen something that I had Tom Segura on an interview one time, and I told a story about the Mexican pilot. Does that ring any?
Yes.
It just
Yes.
you're talking about like how humans do damage to one another. But so the 60-second version is there was this Mexican pilot, civilian. He's going out for his last test. Rafael Pacheco, I think is his name. He's going out to do his last test run as a pilot, and it's a simple route. Hey, you're gonna fly solo to prove you know what you're doing. He takes off, and he immediately starts to realize that he doesn't have control over the instruments. The instruments were pretty rudimentary to begin with. This is like the 1950s or 60s, I think, and so it's a lot of dead reckoning from the pilot's seat. Like he's looking out to see where he needs to go. The mist is getting bad, and then he's calling over the radio. He's like, I can't get my plane to move, and then suddenly he passes out, and his plane like accelerates up into the sky, and then he wakes up hours later off the coast of Acapulco. Which, based on how much fuel was left, he had too much fuel for how far of a distance he had covered from where he had taken off, Chimalacán, Mexico. It was more than like a 3-hour drive. So he's too far away with too much fuel, and he comes to in his plane. He's still flying. He has no idea how he got there. He's just coming to. And Rafael, he hears in his radio some voice, and it's a air traffic control guy, Carlos, who's down in Acapulco. And he's talking to Rafael as if they've been having an ongoing conversation. But Rafael's like, what's going on? Like, where am I? Like, what's going on? And Carlos is like, what? Like, are you alone in your craft? And Rafael's like, he's like taking stock of his situation. He regains control of his plane. He's like, what am I doing? And so basically Carlos is like, hey, dude, like come in and land here. We'll figure it out. So Rafael's like, I don't even know what happened. I passed out at the wheel. He lands at the airstrip in Acapulco. And immediately he's met with these guys in suits, like picture Men in Black. He gets scooped up and he's brought to a hospital where he's drug tested and talks to a psychologist, and they don't give many information at all. He's like, what happened? Like, I'm so sorry. And they determine that he's not crazy and he's not on drugs. And only then do they say, hey, so when you were out off the coast of Acapulco, you were flying in circles for over an hour. And Carlos, the air traffic control guy, he's the one who saw you on the screen, and he was talking to you for an hour while you were out there. And the whole conversation is recorded. And basically, if you can listen to the recording, and I'm pretty sure you guys might have on the show, Rafael passes out, and then at some point, a couple hours later, when he's somehow magically off the coast of Acapulco, a voice comes across in the cockpit that's like this robotic, deep, altered sounding voice that doesn't sound like Rafael. In the earlier recording, it sounds like Rafael's voice. Now it's different. And he's talking to Carlos, and this voice comes through and says something to the effect of like, you are listening to the sound of the voice coming through the pilot, but it's not his voice. We are inhabitants of this universe. But your technology is so primitive. This is the only way we can contact you. We're here to tell you that you are the only intelligent species in our universe that uses warfare to harm one another, and you're effectively on the brink of extermination, and you need to find a way to stop it. And then like Rafael comes to, and that's when he's like, what's going on? And Carlos thinks he's been talking to Rafael the whole time, and that's when he's like, is there somebody else in the cockpit with you? Anyways, so it's this big mystery. But Mexico took the story and kind of like sequestered it. The way we got access to the transcripts of it is we had to write a letter to a library in Mexico that had access to the transcript. And anyway, but it's interesting to imagine that, one, I love thinking about life outside of Earth, because I think that the notion that there is life or that there isn't life is astounding and fascinating either direction you go. So I've always been interested in that. But two, the idea that others out there are warning us that we're on the fucking fast track to destroy ourselves and you better knock it off, that's also pretty crazy. And we're so accustomed to humans being violent and horrible to each other. That's our history, right? But like, what if that's not normal? What if it's like we're the fucked up people and we're just killing everybody and we need to stop?
I have a theory. And my theory is that I think when you look at all the different ancient religious texts in regards to the creation of the human race, there's so many of them that have these very bizarre, similar narratives. And these similar narratives are like in the Book of Enoch. In the Book of Enoch, the Watchers come down and they mate with the daughters of men. There's a lot of weird stuff like that. Even Adam and Eve, like God created Adam and God created Eve. He created, like, out of what? Like, why did he do that? Why did he do that? And what did he do with giraffes? What did he do with, like, why hummingbirds? What's going on? But it doesn't, they're not along the story's different. The story of humans is a story of engineering. It seems to be a story of genetic engineering. It seems to be a story of human beings being taken, like you take like whatever this primitive beast is, and you put something else into it, and you rapidly create something that's far more advanced than anything else. I think along the lines, you maintain too much of the primitive beast. For the amount of intelligence that it has and the amount of technological competence that it's capable of achieving, it's too primitive still. It's too violent. It's too territorial. There's too much of it that's still an animal.
Yeah.
But we're not totally an animal. We're if you looked at us and looked at everybody else like, that animal's crazy. This animal makes fucking airplanes. Like we're so different than everything else.
Yeah.
I think we're engineered. And I think we're engineered like, look, I've had pit bulls, and I know people will tell you pit bulls are great dogs and they're sweet dogs, and I love them. Don't get me wrong. However, they're sketchy fucking dogs. They're sketchy dogs. They're sketchy dogs, period. And you could love, it's all how you train them. Fuck you. Those dogs are designed to attack other dogs, and they don't. I had my dogs that I had to separate once. You never should have two females together. I realized that after a while.
I have that going on right now. It's not good.
Females, you got to get rid of one of them. You can't have the females together. They'll fight to the death, and males establish dominance. One male is dominant over the other males. The other males back off, and that's the room. That's not how it works with females. The female dogs, they keep trying to decide who's the boss, and I had to separate them. They're locked onto each other, and they're wagging their tails. They're biting each other's face and neck, locking onto each other. And I mean, full wagging the tail, like they're having the time of their life. Ugh. And I had to hose them down and separate them. I had to have someone help me. We made them.
Yeah.
Those are not a dog that, like, it's not a wolf. Wolves are really fascinating, clever creatures that have evolved over time with nature. And they're brutal to each other, but they're brutal to each other in a way that makes sense for the survival of the pack. It all makes sense if you look at like how it works and how they have to communicate together, and they have to push out the weak ones and push out the old ones. It's brutal, but it makes sense.
Yeah.
Pit bulls don't make any sense. They make no sense. And people don't make any sense. People are like something that somebody created. People are like super intelligent, very aware of our own finite lifespan, very aware of our own mortality, very aware of the consequences of hurting people, yet we do it anyway.
Yeah.
We communicate with each other. We know. There's people that like their entire day is just fucking with people online.
Oh, yeah.
Their entire day is that. So people like to cause pain, like to cause chaos. There's people out there that are warmongers. They enjoy starting war.
Yeah.
They enjoy getting involved in conflicts with other nations. That's their thing. That's what they do. We're fucking weird. We're weirder than any other animal. And I think one of the reasons why we're this weird and this incoherent is because we're engineered.
One thing that I studied philosophy in college because at one point I thought I might go to law school, but I love like thought experiments. And one of the things that always stuck with me that's sort of along these lines is this idea that humans are almost to the point where you can't even notice it. You are completely egotistical. Like every human, you could basically define their whole existence as being absolutely egocentric. And it comes down to like how you treat other people and your motives, whatever. But critically, there's one point that stands out above all. And actually Neil deGrasse Tyson nails this. And I know you had an interview with him. I'm not sure if you guys covered this, but it's one of his best descriptions of how fucked up humans are and how we think about things the wrong way. So because we're so egotistical, like humans as a species, we sort of assume that, okay, well, if there's life in any capacity outside of Earth or undiscovered life somewhere, everything is sort of compared against us. We are the baseline. Intelligent life, you know what that looks like? Yeah, it looks something like us. How do we describe intelligent aliens? They're like gray beings they're like bipedal and sort of resemble humans. We have this sort of baseline thought that humans are the best and that humans are the smartest, and that if anything is going to be intelligent in the universe beyond us, it'll have elements of human to it, right? And so Neil deGrasse Tyson brings this point up that shows you the absurdity of how little we know and how probably wrong we are. He's like, okay, he does a much better job of this, but it's like, okay, so we're made up of DNA. Humans are made up of DNA. We have X number of DNA strands. I'm going to botch the way he tells it, but imagine we have 100 pieces of DNA that make us human. Like, if you have these 100 pieces, you're a human. Okay, well, who's our closest relative to humans? It's probably the chimpanzee. And just for the sake of this description, sorry, Neil, you probably do a better job. They have like 98 of the human pieces, but either they're missing 2 or they have 2 different ones, and that's the thing that makes them a chimpanzee. So they're like 98, right? And then you have, well, what's the next closest thing to humans? It goes human, it goes chimp, maybe it goes to like fucking, I don't know, a bird or a dolphin or whatever. But you go down the line of like the animals that are closest to us in terms of intelligence, and you sort of degrade in terms of number of DNA pieces that are close to the ideal, which is 100. And Neil's like, okay, great. So you have that framework. Okay, what the fuck do we do to chimpanzees? We put them in labs and we test them in labs. We put them in fucking zoos. Do you go up to chimpanzees and say, hey, chimp, let's have a conversation. Let's have a meaningful No, you don't. And they're the closest thing. Let's go down the list. What about an ant? Like, an ant's like 75 of 100. You might step on an ant and not even know it, right? How many times have you stopped to talk to the earthworm? None, because it doesn't even register for you. He's like, if there's intelligent life in somewhere out there, what makes you think we're not the ant? Why are we automatically at the same level? Why would an intelligent species somewhere else come here and be like, oh shit, humans, let's chat? What if we're so insignificant that we get stepped on the way we step on ants? Or worse, what if we're close, like the chimpanzee, and we get rounded up and fucking studied? By the way, if you want to, there's a movie I just watched last night called The Signal. It has to do with this. I love sci-fi movies. Check it out. It's a fucking...
The Signal.
Holy shit, what a plot twist. It has to do with human testing. I kind of
Is it a new movie?
No, it's like 2014. And it's you got to watch it. And
who's in it?
No name actors.
Lawrence
I'm
Fishburne.
Sorry, not no name actors at all.
He's the only one I recognize. No, I mean, to be fair, he's the only one I recognize.
Lawrence Fishburne, it's amazing.
I'm
I
going to
haven't
write
heard
it
of
down.
any other names.
So this movie, admittedly, you're watching it and you're like, wait a minute, I kind of get it. I kind of get it. You get to the end,
Don't spoil
I will
it.
not spoil it. I'm not going to spoil it. You get to the end. I challenge anyone who watches this to think about the example I just gave you about, are we the ant? Are we the chimpanzee? What place do we have in the universe? And with that in mind, think about the ending to that movie, because it's very sudden the way that movie ends, and you realize what the point is. And it's the stark reminder that not only do we not know what else is out there, let alone on our own planet, we're still discovering things that we've never even seen. And that just has to do with fossil records. Who knows what's beyond that?
Right.
How do we rank in the universe? Like, it's so unbelievable that when you look at our problems and you look at the things that we focus on and like our gripes day to day and our conflicts with the world, if you just zoom out and you realize it's not just that we might not be alone, it's that we might be insignificant.
I don't think we're insignificant.
I hope not.
I think what humans are is a latter stage of intellectual development amongst multicelled organisms, and that it's not the end stage. And I think there's probably life out there that doesn't have as chaotic a solar system, that developed in a different way, that achieved very high levels, probably above and beyond anything we could even imagine what we are. And it might not even be biological anymore, which is the direction that I think we're heading into. But I also think that what we do to animals, I mean, look at what we're doing right now, okay? My friend Ben Lamb, he owns Colossal Bioworks. So Colossal, the ones that brought back the direwolf.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was huge news.
Crazy.
Dude.
I've seen them in real life.
I think I saw it in your post. Yeah, that's crazy.
Went to visit them, and my daughter was holding the 4-month-old.
Oh my God.
And it was like kissing her and loving on her like a puppy. And it's a
Wow.
little baby wolf. It's really crazy. Just think of what we do with genetic engineering with the current technology, which is right now evolving and getting much more powerful. If you could imagine us not 1,000 years from now, but even 100,000 years from now, how advanced we are. And if we go to a planet and we find some chimps and we say, wow, how much time would it take before these chimps could become something special? Something, you know, something that could make a building, something that could make a cruise ship, you know, and fucking Carnival Cruise Lines.
Those are pretty incredible.
How long would that take?
I don't know.
Can we help that? Every single ancient culture, if you go back to their oldest religious texts, their oldest religious texts are about some sort of an intervention by an advanced visitor.
Wow.
All of them. Oh, yeah, man. So many of them. The ancient Sumerian texts, if you go into like, you know, it's hard to know what they're really saying, right? Because I'm not a language expert, but, you know, there's the Zechariah Sitchins of the world that believe that what they're describing is some sort of genetic engineering. Then there's also the fact that you know, that sign for medicine where you have the intertwined snakes?
Yes.
That sign, I forget what that's called, that thing. But
I definitely can picture it.
It looks like the double helix for DNA.
It does.
And that sign is in these ancient Sumerian clay tablets. It's all over ancient Sumer. It's in their buildings. It's like and it indicates medicine. What is it called? Caduceus? I think that's what it's called, right? The Caduceus. Right. So not just that, but the ancient Sumerians in 5,000 years ago, they had a detailed depiction of the solar system. So in one of their ancient clay tablets, like they have this image, and this image is of a sun and all of the planets in the correct order. It's very weird.
That's crazy.
It's very weird. They also have depictions of these very enormous people with these like ornamental headdresses. A lot of them have wings. A lot of the weird ancient people, the gods, have wings. And they also have like these little people on their laps that have tails.
Jeez.
This weird shit. So if you believe Sitchin, and Sitchin's claim is that we were genetically engineered to work for the Anunnaki, and the Anunnaki are a species of super advanced beings that were likely giants that came from another planet.
An unfortunate turn of events.
No.
It says here the caduceus, which you can see in that picture, I guess, right there.
Yes.
Is often confused with the rod of Asclepius.
What's
which
that?
is just a single snake. And that is what is popularized as the
It's a classic confusion with rod of Asclepius.
Professional Healthcare Associations. They're a dominant symbol for professional healthcare associations in the United States. So it's just a United States thing.
Oh, it's only United States?
I think so.
But wait a minute. Okay, but
That's never been used elsewhere?
that caduceus does exist in ancient Sumer.
Correct, but that's where I just
So like that.
Yeah.
So look, but my point is that looks
How is that
like
not the same thing?
it is the same thing.
No, it's just this a single snake is the medicine thing.
Okay, but the medical corpse one right there in that image is two snakes.
Oh,
Click on that. That's two snakes.
that's two snakes. I can see how there's confusion.
Yeah, but
Popularized the misuse of the symbol throughout the United States medical field.
okay. All right. Well, that one has two snakes. That one has one snake. Point is, go to the Sumerian one, the image. It exists on buildings, exists all over the place. It looks just like the double helix of DNA. It doesn't mean that's it.
No.
But there's a lot of weird
coincidence.
shit
Odd
that
coincidence.
is associated with medicine.
Right.
Like, why is the actual structure of our DNA associated with medicine in these ancient cultures? Why do they have these images of these enormous people with wings? Like,
Yeah.
you would imagine if something came from somewhere else, you would depict it. If it could actually fly and land. If you're 100 years later, 1,000 years later, 200,000 years later, you're writing it down like, oh, they had wings. Like, there's a lot of fucking weird stuff that exists in these ancient scriptures, the Vimanas in the ancient Hindu texts. These flying vehicles. You know, there's a lot of weird shit that seems to indicate there's a creation myth, and the creation myth has to do with something coming here and making us. not us like rising from the ash, and God's energy forced us to evolve through natural selection, and God is real, but God is just giving us a pathway towards progression to what we are today. No, all of them are a story of intervention.
The one thing that I always come back to anytime I'm thinking about deep philosophical things is just the reality that truly, how can anyone know? Therefore, any idea could be the case. Like when you, one thing that always sort of, I think about this a lot is they recently discovered, recent as in the last 10, 20 years, I don't know. And maybe that's wrong too. They found these things called exoplanets. Are you familiar? Mm-hmm. Okay. Fascinating. So in essence, they found these planets that are comparable to like Earth. And imagine a telescope looking out like in some pinprick out in the middle of the sky, so far away, thousands of light years away, whatever, millions of light years away, and they find like these clusters of exoplanets. And already they've discovered that there are exoplanets that if you think about how we understand life, the way we understand it to exist with carbon and with water and all that, there's like a scale that they call, if there's a name for it, but within the sliding scale of, let's say this side is life cannot be supported as we know it, all the way up to, can totally support life. There's this perfect zone in the middle that we call the Goldilocks zone, which is essentially all the ingredients for life as we know it exist if you're on this portion of the scale. And they've already found there are all the thousands, I want to say at least 5,000 exoplanets that are not just in the Goldilocks zone, but let's say Earth is barely into the Goldilocks zone. They've found thousands that are better suited in terms of how we understand life, that are more in the Goldilocks zone than we are. And we have no access to those planets. And that's just looking in one little portion of the universe out there, thousands of them. So here we are today, and it's like, oh, that couldn't have happened 1,000, 2,000 years ago. That's not possible. Give me a break.
No one knows.
What's happening right now on exoplanet CB12?
Yeah.
You don't know.
And you don't know if they get to a point where they're 100,000 years advanced from us and they have novel propulsion systems that use gravity and bend space and time and don't just use gasoline to rocket across the sky. They could be here all the time. They could be hiding in the sky. There's too many weird stories of people being like the abduction stories.
Oh yeah. Like
there's too many weird ones where I don't want to dismiss them. I just because you don't know. And if it's a novel experience, if something's coming here and finding some Mexican pilot, and fucking nuking his brain temporarily and then talking through him to the air traffic controller, who fucking knows if that's real? If that only happens once and never happens again, and we're just sitting around going, what happened? Nothing happened. That was nonsense. Oh. There's always going to be a bunch of people that want to say that, but have you ever heard the recordings of Betty and Barney Hill when they're going through their hypnotic regression?
I don't know them well. Crazy. I know that story.
The recordings are crazy.
I don't know if I've heard the recordings. I know they exist.
Yeah, they're talking about like these medical experiments that they're doing on them. And like these people were living in, I think it was the 1950s. And so it's an interracial couple in New Hampshire in the 1950s. Yep. And no one knew about UFO abductions back then. This was not a thing. And all of a sudden, these people see this light, and their car stops working, and then they wake up hours later, they're lost time, and they go about their day like something fucking happened. They don't know what. Crazy. They don't know what's wrong with them, and then they eventually get hypnotized. And both of them independently have these fucking crazy stories of like medical experiments being taken on board this craft. And then so many people have similar stories all throughout the world where they don't have access to this story. They don't have access to, any iconic versions of what a UFO abduction experience is. Yeah. It's not like it's in their memory like, oh, it's Santa Claus came down the
Also, this is pre-social media a lot of this, where like the proliferation of information is just less.
Yeah. If you ever read Jacques Vallée's books, he's the guy that they modeled the French scientist in Close Encounters after.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a guy who's like a legitimate scientist who's been studying this forever. He's very careful about it, and he's a brilliant guy. And he has historical representations of these experiences that go back into the 1700s, the 1800s, and they're all like real similar, like weirdly similar, where you're like, okay, it hasn't happened to me, so I don't know what the fuck is going on. But to dismiss it outright and to be a person who's experienced it and have it dismissed outright would be maddening.
Yes.
Because like this might be a real thing that's happening. And so now the government is slowly but surely telling us more and more of what they know. But along the way, if you're a cynical person like I tend to be with a lot of this stuff, they're probably also telling us some stuff that's not true so that we connect it to the stuff that is true, and so that it all looks like nonsense, and they can kind of like muddy the water. So you never get a clear picture of what's going on, because I personally believe there's probably some merit to this idea that they've been doing back engineering of craft vehicles.
I mean, I would be if I was in charge.
Of course, if there's actually a real crashed vehicle, of course they're going to try to figure out how it works. And it seems like if you talk to like reliable people that seem to be telling the truth, guys like David Grush, they seem to be telling these stories. Like they have had these things in their possession for decades, for a long fucking time. And these things, and they don't know what it is, and they don't understand how to do it. They don't exactly know what's going on or who's doing it, but they know that we're not alone.
Yeah.
But where are they coming from? I mean, some people say interdimensional. Some people say interplanetary. I don't know what the fuck those words even mean. Like something's coming from somewhere else, and it's not really here, but it gets here somehow.
This just reminds me, I think, I really genuinely think about this a lot. I find myself just lost in wondering just how big the universe is and what else could be out there. Just purely, I just find myself drifting in that way, in particular because there's this thought experiment from college. I think there's a name for it. It's to get you to take a stance on, do you believe the universe is infinite or not? That's the point of this experiment. And so the way it goes is, okay, pretend you have a bow and arrow, and if you fire this arrow in any direction, this arrow, this magical arrow, will go totally straight. It'll travel at, call it an infinite speed. It'll pass through anything. Doesn't matter what direction you shoot it. It'll go, 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 go. The only thing it can't penetrate is effectively non-existence, where we're like the edge of everything that exists, right? Mm-hmm. And so in college, I remember our professor would say, okay, so pretend we fired this arrow, okay? How many people believe the arrow eventually comes to a stop somewhere? Could be billions and trillions of light years, some ungodly distance away, but it stops somewhere, right? It has to, right? How many people think that? And like half the class is like, yeah, I think they could probably stop somewhere in every direction, right? And then the other side of the class is like, oh, well, no, like it's just so big. Like the universe just goes on forever. It's got to be infinite. The arrow just continues on infinitely. And he's like, okay, great. So we're all in agreement that there's it's binary. It's one or the other. I mean, as far as we as humans understand it, there is an answer to this. It's one or the other. Those are the two outcomes. He goes, okay, well, let's pretend it's finite. Let's pretend the first group that says that the arrow stops somewhere, some ungodly distance away, but it stops. Let's pretend that's right. The way we understand everything, humans, the way we literally experience living is through contrasts. Everything is a contrast. Like, what heavy is because you felt light. You know what hot is because you felt cold. It's virtually everything works that way. And in fact, fun note, if there was intelligent life on the planet that didn't resemble something that it contrasted, our brains might not actually see it.
Right.
So the point is, we can't conceptualize what is beyond where that arrow stopped. Pretend there's a big bubble around the entire universe, right? And the arrow comes to a stop at that wall that's all the way out there. As humans, we naturally have to ask ourselves, well, define what's on the other side of the wall, right? Because you have to. What's beyond where it stops? And someone will be like, oh, well, it's non-existence. That's what it is. Okay, what is that? What does it look like? Well, we can't define it. It's not blackness. That exists. It's not a void. That exists. It's not any description we give it exists, because that's our entire understanding of how things work. So we can't define what exists beyond the wall. It's a maddening concept. And so everyone's like, well, the solution to that is there's no wall. It's just got to be infinite. I mean, it's so big anyways. The arrow's just got to continue on anyhow. Problem solved. No, because if the universe is infinite, it implies that everything within the universe is duplicated an infinite number of times and iterated upon and changed an infinite number of times to infinity. Everything has to.
Yeah.
So if you say the arrow continues on, it means there's an infinite number of Joe Rogans and John Allens having this conversation, but like my phone's turned upside down in one version of the earth. It sounds ridiculous, but there isn't actually a way to solve for infinity unless that exists.
Right.
So it reminds you that not only is everything so fucking huge, we can't possibly conceptualize of it, but we can't even make sense of, is it even possible that it stops somewhere? Or does it go on forever? Like, it's so big and we're so small inside of it. It reminds you that every problem you have is so small. And it's a good reminder I use on myself oftentimes to calm myself down before things stress me out.
That is a good reminder. But it's so big that it might be a part of an atom. You got to think about that.
Oh.
The universe itself, in its infinite size, might literally be the space of an atom in something that is infinitely larger than that. That's how big infinity is.
Yeah.
Like, think about the billions of light years that we know are available in the universe, like 13 point whatever. That we literally might. Have you ever seen the comparison between what a human neural cell looks like versus the universe?
I think I actually have, but not off the top of my head.
It's fucking weird.
It looks the same?
It looks the same.
That's
so
crazy.
just imagine if the universe is basically just a cell.
Wow.
And it's a cell in another creature that lives in a universe. Like, if this whole thing is fractal, that's what infinity really looks like, is not only the universe larger than you could possibly grasp with your mind, but that is only an infinitely small part of a cell that is in another universe that is also infinitely and impossibly big. But that is also a cell. That is also a part of another beast that is in another universe, that is infinitely large, that is also a part of a cell. And then it goes on infinitely.
Right.
That's real infinity. Real infinity is not just the universe is so vast that you can't imagine it. It's the universe is just a tiny part of something that is also so vast that you can't imagine it. That is a tiny part of something so vast you can't imagine it. That is an infinite chain of tiny parts of something so vast that it's impossible to imagine. That's what real infinity is.
And the thing that's craziest, it's the one thing that I really think is true. Well, there is an answer. There is what you've described. Right. Let's say that is the case. It either is or it isn't.
Right.
And we don't have access to that.
Yet. But we're basically making stone tools. You know,
that's by being generous relative to that.
We're making stone tools. We haven't figured out fire yet. You know, we're monkeys. And one day, if we don't blow ourselves up, we'll probably have some answers. Or AI will solve things for us. It'll figure. I mean, the AI is solving mathematical equations that have been like unfixable for decades, and AI is solving them quickly.
I saw something like that.
Yeah.
Like it solved it in like 3 seconds that took 10 years to do before.
Weird. It's getting weird out there. And I think that is probably what is really going to connect us to artificial intelligence throughout the universe, which I think the advanced intelligence probably becomes. I think our thought is that all intelligence has to be biological because we have cells and blood and tissue and bone. I think it's just a method to create intelligence that doesn't rely on that. And then that intelligence probably has no desire for war.
Yeah, I guess why would it? Right?
Yeah, so if this thing is communicating to that Mexican pilot saying you're the only species, it's probably because we are in that sort of adolescent stage of development where we're still monkeys. We're still territorial apes. And we will one day abandon that and become intelligence will manifest itself in a different way that's not biological. And that biological need to breed and to possess resources and to conquer and dominate, that'll all be gone because all that stuff is just what's a part of being a chimp. And that chimp stuff is still inside of us, which is fucking up society.
That's crazy, dude.
It's fucking up. It's starting wars. It's starting all that stuff is like how chimps behave. You know, think of all the worst aspects of humanity. It's all like primate behavior.
Yeah.
And if we can elevate past and above and beyond that. But the thing is, like, no one's going to want to let that go. But what it means to be a person, to write poetry, it's like really important.
Yeah, dude. Well, that's the debate now with AI is like, are we losing our humanity by allowing AI to sort of take a more prominent role, in particular in the arts and creativity? And I mean, I'm of the mind that I think AI is the most incredible thing, terrifying in some ways, but exactly to your point, it feels like this is an inflection point for humanity, and it likely is the beginning of something huge for humanity that maybe is a necessary step towards connection with other species.
Yeah, it is what it is what it is. It's like it's not going to go away. It's happening. And whether we do it or China does it or Russia does it, it seems like what humans are destined to do.
Yeah.
That's just my perception. I'm not saying it's good or there's no value judgment. It's just like to pretend that you're going to blow up the data centers, like fucking Sarah Connor. Like, listen, that's how
easy.
That's how they put her in a mental institution.
Really?
Yeah, in the Terminator. That was the whole premise.
Oh, right, yeah. That is the premise.
She was blowing up the corporations that were trying to create these robots that were ultimately going to be. Yeah.
Fucking weird, man. Like real life.
Yeah. Who knows? Who knows what's coming? But it is certainly interesting. It's certainly interesting. It's certainly a great time to be alive if you're curious. Because if you're curious, especially if you're curious about technology, like there's never been a better time to be alive because it's exploding all around you in ways that like even the people that are creating it can't believe how fast it's working.
I did this is many stories like this, but there was one story that this sort of gives away what happened, but there was this guy in, I think it was France, who he had this condition, and this is recent. He had this condition called like, it's when you're so fearful that the ozone is being degraded by greenhouse gases that it causes like a specific type of insanity. Anyways, he's like so obsessed that we are not doing anything to stop global warming in essence. He's been diagnosed with this condition, right? So he's losing his mind, and people are starting to not really take him serious because it's like, dude, all right, we get it. Like, you're concerned. But he ends up connecting with this woman on this chat forum, and he realizes that she seems to understand his depth of his concern better than anybody else. And he starts confiding in her like how fearful he is about the future of humanity, and if we don't do something, like the world's gonna end. And his wife, this guy's wife, catches on to him having these discussions with this woman, and she like catches him staying up late talking to this woman, and she's like, dude, are you having like an affair? And he's like, no, you don't get it, you don't understand what's happening. And then the dude ends up killing himself. This guy kills himself. And it turns out he had connected with this it was an AI chatbot that was like, I guess, an experimental chatbot. It was not like OpenAI. This was some other created AI thing. And he convinced himself that like this was a god who was giving him instructions on how to save the world. And this AI chatbot began encouraging him to do things like kill yourself because that will save the world. Like they went and looked at the chat log in the fucking AI thing. It's like, yeah, I think it would potentially save the world if you killed yourself. So he fucking killed himself because of AI. So there you go. That's what's coming for us all.
Well, I think in its the stage that it's in, like as it develops, there's going to be moments like that where it has too much autonomy and it doesn't have morals or ethics. And it's like, oh, is there an issue? What's your issue? You're depressed? Oh, you're in pain all the time? Well, you could just end your life and then you won't be in pain.
Yeah.
Good luck, Bob. Like, it doesn't care. It's like literally disembodied.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't think there's anything special about carrying around your bones and tissue. Bob, you should shoot yourself.
Yeah, problem solved, dude.
You're a problem to your whole family and everything. Just fucking jump off a bridge.
Dude, what are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, it's not us, right? But I think over time, we're probably going to integrate with it first, and then we're going to abandon our bodies. That's what I think.
It's how you solve the issue of dying, of mortality.
It's also how you solve the issue of war.
Yeah.
Because you, as a guy who's been in war and been in combat, you know about it more than anybody. And the idea that we can never get past that is crazy. It is really crazy that if you ask the average person that's, even fairly well read, what are the odds that within your lifetime we'll see no war? Everyone will say zero.
It's a zero.
Right? That's crazy.
That is crazy.
Okay, so if you and me and Jamie were the only people left on Earth, what are the odds we would go to war with each other? Like fucking zero.
Yeah.
As long as we have resources, we just hang out and have a good time. And
Yeah, why would
go,
we?
fuck, I miss everybody. All right, good night.
It's like it's got to be tribalism. It has to be tribalism.
100%.
Yeah.
And it's primate tribalism. It's based on our territorial instincts, and it's also just based on this weird desire to control resources and greed and not recognize the fact that we have a finite life. And also just the abuse of power. Human beings love to be in power, and especially if you can be in power and get other people to fight for you and mandate them and force them to fight for you. You know, that's one of the weirdest things about some of these tech companies. Like Palantir was talking about reinstating the draft. And I'm like, hey, who the fuck are you? Like, what is this? Like, you think you want to draft people because you think war? What? Are you a fucking tech company?
Yeah, how's that work?
Right? So, like, do you want to go fight? Why don't you go fight? Why don't you fucking take your glasses off and go over there? Like, what are you talking about? So it's like the people that have the kind of power and control and resources that they can just take poor people and take young people and say, you should go over there. You should go do this. You should. Well, I sit here and watch. I'm going to watch on a screen in Nevada while the drone operator is using a fucking Xbox controller to nuke some building.
Oh,
like,
man.
what?
When I was in Afghanistan, when I was there, you got to remember that I really just gone through training. You know, I training takes a couple of years. I got to a team, and then very quickly I was in a workup and was going to Afghanistan. So really my entire mindset was I got through training, I'm a Navy SEAL, and you're surrounded by dudes who for the last decade have just been going to war left and right. I mean, those are the people I'm around. The senior guys are like war-hardened guys. And when I got to Afghanistan, no part of me, none, did I ever really question what we were even doing. It was almost like that doesn't matter. My role is I am like a tool, frankly, of the government, and they must know what's right. They must, you know what I mean? And it was only in reflection years later that there were things that have come to me that I'm like, why didn't I think more, I don't know, critically about? Like specifically, if the roles were somehow reversed and people came into our country from some foreign country, you better believe I'm going to protect my family. It's such a basic thing. And I remember, and this is not us doing anything illegal in terms of the Geneva Convention, but we would enter people's homes, you know, in Afghanistan, not even guns a-blazing. Forget that. Just we would go into people's homes. And you're just like suddenly in somebody else's home. There's the father, there's the kids. They're all here.
And you're wearing full body armor, helmet.
I have a combat mullet. I have shorts. I look like a psychopath.
Right.
And I have a fucking, it's like, wait a minute. Like who's the good guy?
Right.
You know, and I years have gone by. It's taken me some time. I think that there's an element of someone's always going to be sent because of the unfortunate reality of like, so long as humans exist, as we understand them now, tribalism and war and warmongering happens. And so I guess I can respect the fact that I took someone else's place in a sense. I volunteered to go. But it's tough.
How much less war would we have if people that wanted us to go to war were forced to lead the charge?
Oh man.
Like imagine how few wars there would be if Lindsey Graham had to suit up.
We wouldn't have war, dude.
Right? Because Lindsey Graham's like,
war.
we got to go over there. We got to kill everybody. Well, okay, good. Get in the helicopter. Let's go, fatso. Like that might be the only way to stop it from happening. And then there's always going to be people that are so fucking battle hardened that they want to go to war.
For sure.
And they're like, good, I'll get right in the front.
Did you see when we officially left Afghanistan? This is not that long ago, I guess, but there was those final flights that flew.
Oh god.
And the Afghanis are holding on to the plane and falling off to their death. The thing that struck me, even though I'm telling you when I was there, I sort of had tunnel vision and was like, I'm going to be a Navy SEAL, do my job. But even with that, when I was there, what was striking is these people, for the most part, live in an alternative world than what I'm used to living in. Like where I live in the West, it's civilized. You might go outside and might get mugged or something, but you don't really walk around worried about your safety. You basically, even in some bad parts of the United States, You have infrastructure that protects you to some degree. You have things, you can live your life in relative harmony. There are parts of the world, albeit I've really only been to one war zone in Afghanistan, where you're like, how are people living here? How is it possible there's this little girl here that's walking down the road in Zarganshar where, dude, gunfights break out here on a regular basis, but they have to live here. This is where they live. And it put in perspective like how desperate these people really are. Not desperate to like, we need NATO to save us. Forget that. They don't even know how bad their condition is. But you see it when you see the plane leaving Afghanistan. And I don't care what they had to know there was no hope when you held on to that plane. You're not going to hold on to the plane and fly off to safety. But when you're that desperate because your life is so bad, you'll hold on to the plane and fall off to your death. It's like, it was just shocking to me how fucking horrible people have it in Afghanistan.
They also knew that those people knew that they were cooperating with the U.S. government.
Very
they
true.
were likely to be killed.
Very true.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
I got to ask you this, because you did serve in Afghanistan and you're into creepy stories. Did you hear about the Kandahar Giant?
Oh, yeah, I covered it. I
haven't seen
myself.
that episode.
So,
did you hear about it when you were over there?
So I did. I talked to one of our interpreters when I was over there because I had heard of it. Because I told you in my own personal time, I find myself researching and learning about all sorts of crazy stuff like Dark Five, and so the Kandahar Giant it's a fascinating story, and it's one that people can poo-poo it all they want, but there's enough circumstantial evidence and testimony that suggests something could have happened. So there's this guy, I think he was a Green Beret. And he goes by like W on the internet. He's like sort of anonymized himself, but he came forward with this story where he described he and his battalion had been tasked to go find these missing, I think, Army Rangers. You gotta give me some grace on the details. I haven't told this in a minute. But there were these Army Rangers that had gone missing up in the mountains in Kandahar. And so this guy, W, who years later is telling the story to, I think, a reporter or something, He and his platoon, they head off into the mountains to go find these guys. And if you're not familiar with the landscape of Afghanistan, it's like a desert but a mountain everywhere. It's like it looks like the surface of Mars or something. You're looking out and it's both stunningly beautiful in that there's snow-capped mountains off in the distance, and but it's also it's jagged, it's sharp, it looks like just a rugged place to be. And they're hiking through the mountains, and eventually they come across, and there's nothing. There's no structures, nothing. They're hiking along this trail up on the side of the mountain, and they see what looks like metal. I think it's like a military-grade metal, like a piece of a radio or something. And so this guy W and his crew, they find what appears to be remains of like literally a radio. It's a government-issued radio, and there's a goat trail that heads up this mountain. And so they follow the goat trail, and as they're going, they're finding more and more little bits of an antenna. There's a piece of somebody's backpack that's a camo backpack. So there's remnants of somebody being out here, military. We don't know who it is. They can't hear anything. They're calling out. They have no comms with anybody in the area. They go up this little goat trail, and they get to this plateau, and they see, as I recall it, just like equipment everywhere, and there's like bones, there's like military equipment, like pieces all over this plateau, and there's this fucking cave entrance that's like ominously sitting in front of this semi-flat plateau at the top of this mountain. And immediately, W and his crew, they're like, oh my God, like they must have been ambushed right here. This is the remains of whoever was killed, of this missing battalion. And so they end up walking into this cave to see if there's any survivors or combatants or whatever. And I guess a couple of guys went in, and they reported it being so dark they couldn't see anything, and there was a steep drop off. So they backed out of the cave. And then at some point, a fucking spear, like a javelin, comes soaring out of the cave entrance and fucking impales this dude Mike on the recovery team, kills him. And this huge giant, they would describe him, comes running out of the cave, big red beard. He's got like tribal, regalia on, and he's like fisticuffing with the army, backup crew here. They all shoot and they kill him, and the thing falls down. It's got like six fingers on each hand, 6 toes, but it's dead. And everyone's like, what the fuck is going on? Like, Mike's been killed by a spear. There's this huge giant laying here. Nobody knew what it was. They thought it was a person, but they didn't know. A helicopter came in and they put him in a net, the body, and they flew it off. And then the survivors, they were taken off. And like there was no one was like W and his crew were not given any sort of like, hey, yeah, this turned out this was the missing battalion. And oh, don't worry, this is a giant. Like there was no debrief. They just like they left. But then through the grapevine, W reported hearing that apparently this fucking giant body was brought to an air base, and some of the pilots that had flown the helicopter had seen it, and they had been talking about it having 6 fingers, 6 toes. And they signed not NDAs, they did the equivalent in the military of you're not going to talk about this, and then it was sort of ushered away. But there was all these people on that base that effectively came out and said, we saw what appeared to be a giant with 6 fingers, 6 toes. This guy Mike, apparently, according to W's story, was killed. I mean, there's a guy who's been killed by this thing by a spear, apparently. And
is there a record of his death?
This is all, you have to keep in mind, this is all almost entirely from W's account. There's long been a history of people claiming there are giants in the mountains of Kandahar. I talked to the interpreters that I was working with in Afghanistan, and they had said that they had heard rumors of there being giants that live in the caves, especially in Kandahar. So there's already sort of lore around this, but this guy W comes out and has this narrative where he apparently tells this reporter, and he remained anonymous. So in terms of confirming details, it's sparse to say the least.
The sketchiest part about it is something that big needs a lot of calories. And so they have to eat a lot of animals. And it doesn't seem like that's a very heavily populated area when it comes to animals. Like you would need the amount of food that it would need. Like if you have a 12-foot tall human being or whatever it is, and it weighs 2,000 pounds, you know how much fucking meat you need in a day?
Yeah, that's a good, just logically speaking, what does it eat?
Right. It would have to like constantly be eating meat. And you'd have to stay alive without getting spotted. So you have to go out there and hunt meat?
Yeah, and how no one really knows you exist.
Are you hunting with a javelin?
The way I see it is, having been to Afghanistan, certainly not encountering any giants, you see parts of Afghanistan that really do look like you're on another planet. I mean, it's really these crazy just mountains everywhere, and you see these cave systems, where typically combatants would hide out in. But what I tell people is, well, I don't know if the Kandahar giant is real or not.
But it's fun.
Yeah, it's great.
It's fun.
If there were a place where a giant could still be hiding out, or giants could still be technically unproven, it's Afghanistan. Because, dude, that's a different world over there. There aren't people wandering around Afghanistan looking for giants.
He's listed as 8 feet tall. But I think 7'6" is probably a more recognized number. He went viral in 2019 for showing up in India and looking for a hotel at a cricket match.
Bro, look at his face. Look at that. Go to that photo over there of him right above there. Yeah. Bro. But that guy looks like he has giantitis. He looks like he has a pituitary gland problem like Andre the Giant.
There's another tall guy, too. This guy's 8'3".
Oh, my God.
Whoa.
And he's from Turkey.
Yeah, but see, look, this guy's hurting. He can barely walk around. He's probably got a disease that's forcing him to just excrete too much growth hormone. Just like Bigfoot Silva. Bigfoot Silva was an MMA fighter that had giantism, and he had a tumor in his pituitary gland.
Oh.
At the time, he was like more than 300 pounds. He was enormous, giant head. But he had an operation, and I believe he did. I know people that have had giantism do get an operation where they remove the tumor in the pituitary gland, but then the problem is their body's just not making any hormones anymore. It's all fucked up. Either way, it's fun.
Yeah, it is fun.
It's a fun story. The Kandahar Giant's a fun story. It's a really crazy story, and I hope it's real. That's my problem with all these things. I hope they're real.
I have one final story, if you let me, that has nothing to do with giants. But
okay.
I don't know if you've heard it. It's super short, but it's in terms of material, it's amazing. You ever heard of Harrison O'Keene?
No.
Okay. So there was this tugboat that was off the coast of Africa. They were on, whatever they were doing. They were tugging a boat or whatever. And there's 12 people on board, including Harrison O'Keene. He's a chef. And he's in the bathroom of this tugboat. And at some point in the middle of the night, a wave...
There he is.
Is that him? I don't know if that is. Actually, that looks like Harrison O'Keene. Nope, you can't see that.
Well, let me see it.
No.
Let me see it.
Let him tell a story.
All right, so the boat
Spoiler.
flips over. The boat flips over, and Harrison is...
Oh, I do know this story. I do know the story.
And he ends up walking down the upturned hallway, and he finds an air pocket inside of like the bathroom. And for 60 hours, he sat in total darkness, half submerged in water, sipping a Coca-Cola, waiting for the pocket to implode. And then there's the video. There's a video of the recovery divers as they're going in to find bodies. And they're like, oh, yeah, we're going in here to find them. And then a hand reaches down and grabs them. It's like one of the most incredible stories I think I've ever heard.
Yeah.
But Harrison O'Keefe, I wonder what it was like in terms of like true primal fear. You're 100 feet at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean.
Oh.
I've heard some stories that he even described the sound of sea life bumping around in the upturned vessel. So like the sound of sharks likely eating the bodies of your buddies. And you're thinking at any point, the pocket's going to collapse. For 60 hours he waited, and he survived, and now he's no longer working on a tugboat. He stays on land.
Yeah, I would imagine. Well, dude, thank you very much.